It was on a Monday morning, exactly 9 a.m. She had attended to over 50 customers in the last 1 hour. "If I was able to have such number of customers for the whole day, I would be happy," said Rolu, replying to Eric. They had their restaurants on the next street to Bisi's. For years since Bisi opened her restaurant, they had been her major competitors and absolutely controlled larger share of the market. They had been peeping to watch customers came and left since 8 a.m., having heard rumors about their once loyal customers trooping at Bisi's restaurant. They never thought some customers could abandon them. Was it Ralph we have to talk about? I mean, a man that never bought 3 successive plates without coming for credit? But here he was looking at Rolu from afar and didn't care. It all started about a year ago. Customers started preferring Bisi's restaurant. She started having more and more customers daily. People from her locality and outside came also, singing praises of how sumptuous her food was. Both the elite and common citizens all patronized her. In the past, it was hard to be confident about where you can get a food to satisfy everyone's taste, but now, that is in the past. The abroad citizens of Arini had pride in Bisi's food. They could always invite their friends home during the festive period. Rest assured that Bisi's food will serve everyone to satisfaction. There was a rumor that she was using juju. Some parents had warned their children not to eat from the food, while some people just didn't want to eat from it. We can best explain the reason for that as fear from whatever could be the reason for her success. How best can you explain someone who hardly sold to 20 customers a day while using a wooden restaurant in the last 1 year have gone to serving over 400 customers and moved to a better restaurant which had all the needed facilities for customers' convenience? Some silently gossiped that a pastor once saw a vision that his church members should not eat from Bisi's food. The pastor claimed that a demon consulted by Bisi always washed his hands in the food, and it was only someone that had attained a given level in the spiritual realm could see it. All of these would not hinder Bisi's success story. When she was asked about how she did it, Bisi always attributed her success to believing in God, hard work, and passion for her job. Later in the afternoon, Rolu and Eric had gone back to their respective restaurants. Rolu was still brooding and not happy about the turn of event. He blamed herself for going personally to see what was happening at Bisi's restaurant. She couldn't believe all that she saw, and now her rest of mind had depreciated. Before now, it was only Eric that was going there, and she always came back for feedback. This had made them took some steps to demean Bisi's larger share of the food market. Instead, Bisi continued recording success. Rolu hardly attended to 3 customers since coming back from Bisi's restaurant. Majority of those who patronized her were the religious sect who believed in the prophecy of the pastor, some who were just convinced that someone cannot ordinarily achieve such feat as that of Bisi's within a year, and people who were new to the neighborhood. She had been brooding and was exhausted at the turn of the event of the day. She decided to make her way out and expose herself to fresh air. As she was stepping out, she met Eric at the door. Eric asked her how she was doing and hoped she had been able to tend to many customers since she came back. She replied by telling her she was only able to attend to just 3 customers. They both took a deep breath. What are we going to do in this situation? Hope this won't lead us to relocating to another area? Or we should just succumb and meet with Bisi to show us the way? Eric asked. I can't give up now. I have come a long way. I have been selling food in this locality before anyone around. I have sold food to cater for my family expense since losing my husband. I have a lot of friends who also rely on me. If I was to leave this vicinity, the logistics, opening of new restaurant, and branding in another area will cost a fortune which I can't afford for now. I have loans to repay also, Rolu replied. About going to beg Bisi to show them way, she didn't reply. She prided herself as the leader of all the 3 leading food restaurants in the locality. She used to have about 5 people working for her. She was the first to record success, and it was not new to everyone. She was the first child of a beak, a woman who was ruling the food industry in the state last 2 decades. Her mother was dishing for kings, government officials, and dignitaries until she lost her life from sleep. Abik's death came with surprise, controversy, and speculations. We have masterminded the rumor about the devil and juju while using the church of my boyfriend. What else do you think we can do? Eric asked worriedly. Rolu looked sober, thinking about the legacy she needed to leave for her family, since this was a family business. She told Eric that they needed not give up, but should rather strive to see the downfall of Bisi's business. Then she came up with the idea of using Bisi's ally to get to her. After all, it is the person that knows you so well that is capable of inflicting injury on you without your suspicion. She believed that they needed to use Bola in order to achieve their aims. Bola was a young lady of about 26 years of age. She was the first child from a humble family where it was hard for her parents to cater for their 3 children. After her secondary education, she was enrolled to learn fashion designing, which she suffered to learn successfully. There were times she would go to work on empty stomach, and she had on several days trekked down to her workplace of about 15 kilometers. After learning to get equipment became a problem. She was getting some jobs, but such jobs were bringing in meager amount which were insufficient to cater for her needs. It was one of those days that she went to supply cloth to Bisi that Bisi noticed her mood, since she was a joyful person that hardly allowed bad time to overshadow her joy. Bisi asked her about what was wrong, and she shared her concern with her. That was how Bisi convinced her to start working for her. Working with Bisi for over 4 years, she was well paid and had grown to become a confidant of Bisi. Now she can cater for her family from her salary and had a stable relationship which she was looking at getting married soon. One day, about 10 p.m., after the closing hour, Bola was on her way home trying to safely get home soon when she looked up and saw both Eric and Rolu. She was surprised why the two of them were looking at her happily. They approached and greeted her. She answered and demanded for what she could do for them. They told her the problem they had been facing and pleaded for her to help them. She asked to know what kind of help they needed from her before she could promise to help. They demanded to know if there was any means which Bisi was using to ensure customers were patronizing her. They pleaded with her to be considerate and helped them out of the predicament they were facing since about a year. Bola answered that she understood where they were driving at and implored them to just forget about finding any secret, as that would be an exercise in futility. With scornful face and loud voice, she said them to go and focus on their work and have better lives. She, however, walked out of them. Rola was embarrassed. She considered Bola walking out on them as being disrespectful. Was it not the same Bola? She had now grown wings enough to walk out on us. Rola fumed. Eric couldn't say anything. Rola told Eric that they would need to act fast and tame Bola before she was out of control. The following Monday, Bola resumed to work and called onto her boss to inform her of what both Eric and Rola discussed with her. Bisi told her not to mind them. She thanked her for her belief and support and, however, point out the fact that she's got no secret but her selective recipe. After all, Bola at times cooked foods when she was not around, and the customers still found it sumptuous. Though the secret recipe was shared with Bola some few months back when Bisi was sick. About 2 months after, Bola was in her room, listening to music since it was on a Sunday afternoon. They did not open restaurant on Sundays. She started to feel hungry and decided to get some pepper on the street so she can cook some soup for the EBA she'll like to make later in the day. She was on her way when she noticed a man in white attire, looking like a spiritual being concentrating on her from afar. She thought to herself and concluded that the man might be one of those who will need to be directed to their destination. As they got closer, the man greeted her and she answered. The man, however, demanded to see her. She obliged, stating that the man must be faster with whatever he would like to say. The man greeted again and introduced himself as Man of God. She told her that as he saw her, he saw a star on her forehead, a star that was indicating her unique greatness, stressing she was supposed to have started seeing the sign of greatness since she clocked 25, but some great spiritual people were already using her glory to boost their own. Bola's answer to what Man of God said was indifferent. She didn't know particularly what to believe in. She was not really a religious person. Before she could say anything, the Man of God offered to have her number, which she called for him to type and save. She, however, went ahead to buy the pepper. She cooked and ate her food before going to bed later at night. Around 1 a.m., she woke up panting and sweating like someone who had just fought a lion and narrowly escaped from his grasp. She saw someone covered in black cloth telling her to give her the remainder of the shining gold she held, but she answered the person that she wouldn't be able to do so. That was what led to the struggle with the person before she woke up. Could this be an indication that what man of God said in the afternoon was true? A part of her mind shrugged it off and claimed that she dreamt of what she was thinking of. Bola couldn't sleep until later in the morning when she dressed and left for work. The event of the day was going smoothly as usual, and everyone was attending to their respective duties. Bisi's had about 16 people working for her, but Bola was the one in charge of the finance. Every payment made was to Bola. She was more like the supervisor to everyone else. Bisi most time was always in the kitchen, but she oftentimes came around to assist and give instructions to everyone. One Saturday afternoon, Bisi was looking for her chain which she was to adorn to an event. She was so confident that she had it at the restaurant because she saw it earlier in the morning. Now she couldn't find it. She called on everyone around and told them what she was looking for, backing her claim with the fact that she saw it in the morning. Everyone denied having anything to do with it. Believing that they were all lying and the person who took it intended to steal it, Bisi decided to check everyone's bag to ascertain that they didn't have it with them. She checked everybody's bag except that of Bola. Still, she couldn't find it. She gave up on searching and dismissed them. Then she heard some of them murmuring. She demanded to know why they were murmuring. One of the workers came out and told her about the need to check Bola's bag also. She told Bisi that favoritism should have no influence in such a matter, and if she wanted to find what she was looking for, she needed to be just. Immediately Bola heard that. She felt the need to second the submission. After all, there was nothing to fear. She brought out her bag and opened it herself. The bag was searched, and chains and some money which Bola couldn't account for were found there. Bola was startled at the turn of event. How could there be chains in my bag? Where did all these money come from? She couldn't find an answer to the questions. She was sure that she didn't have anything to do with neither the chain nor the money. But who would believe her now? Bisi felt disappointed with what she saw. So many unanswered questions in her brain. Was that how Bola used to steal her money? Should she still trust Bola? I mean, someone who stole her chain? After all, she was paying her well because she was the first subject working with her. She had been working with her for years before everyone else. Bisi eventually discharged everyone and closed her door for her to think it through. The following day at home, Bisi was alone, still thinking of how to go about the situation at work. She felt disappointed in Bola and tried to find a good punishment which would not make her appear weak and served as a deterrent to others. If it was someone else that did what Bola did, such person would be dismissed, but she couldn't do that to Bola due to their relationship. She, however, decided that she would need to hire someone else to occupy Bola's position and thereby demote her to a lower position. Though, Bola's salary won't be affected. It had been a month after Bola's demotion to dishing foods for customers. She found it challenging to do, and it was a bad experience for her. Was it the mentality of worship that the customers want from you, or the need for her to answer to someone ahead of her? I mean, she that was being answered to was now answering to someone else. Should we even talk about the kind of disrespect she was getting from colleagues who used to look for her favor? Before she was demoted, she met with Bisi to clean herself of the mess, but Bisi didn't want to listen to her. It felt like her world was falling. One day, she was very tired about how her story had turned out. She felt the need to find a spiritual father to help with prayers for her to be successful. Who else could she call if not a man who had made himself known to her? She was not really a religious person, the reason for her not to even have someone to call. She concluded she needed to call Man of God. But how would she be able to do that when the last time the man called him, she talked rudely to him on phone, emphasizing that she believed that they were all fake and no God was sending them any errand. But what could she have done now? She brought out her phone, talked to the man on phone after apologizing for her earlier mistakes. She told the man about what she was facing and the need for his spiritual help. They concluded to meet the following at the Man of God Worship Center. The following day, Bola called in sick so she could be able to go and see the man at the worship center. When she got there, she again apologized, and the man of God shrugged it off and welcomed her well. She felt happier and safe. The man of God told her that he had prayed over her ordeal, and he was made to understand that the problem she was facing was as a result of the fact that someone else was using her glory. She asked who it was, and the man of God told her that it was her boss. He said that the taboo was that she must not leave Bisi's restaurant, and Bisi must not send her away. stressing the fact that Bisi also knew about the taboo. To Bola, that answered the reason why Bisi couldn't send her away when the issue of chain happened. She, however, asked the man of God what the solution was. When he answered, man of God told her that she needed to get her glory back, and that could only be done if she would follow his instructions. He told her that she needed to send Bisi out of Arini because the glory was rooted to Arini, and once they did that, she would also have to open her own restaurant and start selling food because her glory has been intertwined with food selling. How do we go about it? She asked the man of God. The man of God told her to come closer, and she talked into her ears. Later at home, Bola was having a mixed feeling about what to do. Man of God had told her that they needed to implicate Bisi so she could leave Arini for worse. They planned to plant a dead snake in Bisi's pot of soup. After all, some people were suspecting her of using juju already. The following week, Bola had met with Man of God to collect the snake and had planted it in the pot of soup. A customer was buying food and demanded for a particular meat. The attendant was trying to bring out the meat, but it turned out to be a snake. Everyone around started running helter-skelter. What was just discovered had already become news in the whole of Arini and far beyond. Before everyone knew what was going on, thousands of citizens had came around and started protesting. Bisi and her workers barely escaped, but the restaurant was burned down. About a week later, on a Sunday evening, Erike was on her way to see Rolu at her restaurant before meeting Rolu, who was also going to check Erike. Their business had started seeing growth since the fall of Bisi's restaurant, and they couldn't sacrifice Sundays. As they saw each other, they started laughing and happy for achieving their aims. After greeting each other, Rolu said she thought Bola was going to be hard to deal with, but never knew she could trust Man of God and blindly help by playing a role in achieving their aim. Erike said Man of God was her own personal person and would do anything just to satisfy her. They, however, believed that they still had a role to play in dismissing Bola, since they expected her to set up her own restaurant, which will absolutely affect their business. It had been a month since the incidents, and Bola was yet to set up her own business. Truly, she had some substantial amount which she had saved up from her salary at Bisi's restaurant, but it was not enough to set up her own. She was contemplating on getting loan from friends and families and hoped she would pay back in less than a year after setting up the restaurant. Everything she labored for had been lost. Life was never the same, and there was no one to help Bisi from the situation she had found herself. Where would she go to? Who would show an iota of understanding if she should give account of how she got here? Would she be able to get out of this? Those were the words of Bisi in her living room, looking sober and thinking about how everything had changed in a very short while. Not even Bola, whom she thought was understanding enough, was coming to check up on her, and it was even harder for her to go anywhere during the day as she feared the people of Arini taking a supposed justice in their hands. What would be the end of Bola, who is a prospect in the business, as Erike and Rolu are already making moves against her? Please subscribe to this channel and on notification for part 2. Thank you.